Day 2 of the NFL Draft is now over for DenverBroncos.com. I'm your team reporter and host, Elisa Hernandez, standing alongside our lead writer on DenverBroncos.com, Aric DiLalla. A lot of trades came in Day 2, and it was a lot to navigate as you kind of see the Broncos maneuvering that. George Paton and Sean Payton both talked after the day was done. What were your takeaways from what they said?
Yeah, it was a busy day, right? George Paton joked that he had a little celebration in the war room for Sean Payton for trading down for the first time in, almost 20 years. Obviously, we know Sean Payton likes to be aggressive, likes to move up.
Yeah.
But this was the sort of draft where it made sense to trade back. Obviously, the Broncos traded back initially from that 51st overall pick. Then they traded back again from 57 to 60. They picked up some picks in the process, which is what was really important. And in both of those trades, they got an extra fourth-round pick. They moved up 11 spots in the third with one of them, 11 spots in the fourth with the other. And so they were able to really kind of find what the sweet spot of this draft was and approach it accordingly. But I'm sure that it's not easy, right, to want to target a player. Obviously, RJ Harvey, the running back, was the first guy the Broncos selected on Friday. George Paton mentioned it's a little nerve-wracking when you trade back and you just hope that guy falls to you. But that's where having the parameter of a deal in place before the draft arrives helps. And then also, having the knowledge that these teams that are picking between when you were supposed to pick and when you end up picking, that they don't need a running back. And so you're not guessing here, right? There's some knowledge involved. But the Broncos were ultimately able to get some players that they wanted, and you probably don't get a guy like Savon Jones at the end of round 3 if you don't make those 2 earlier trades to trade back. And so ultimately it was a big puzzle, and George Paton, as Sean Payton said, did a fantastic job of putting all the pieces together, getting some really good football players.
Yeah, you got the running back, a wide receiver, and the defensive end. When Harvey talked after, he mentioned that he's very excited to play under Sean Payton because Payton has a very good reputation working with running backs. He talked a little about working with Alvin Kamara, Sean Payton did, and then just calling him dynamic and just one of those backs that's really going to be explosive for them. We talked about weapons yesterday that came more on the defensive side. Now they got 2 offensive weapons in this round.
Yeah, let's start with Harvey, right? This guy has burst. This guy has speed. There's a highlight against CU, actually, where he's open on a wheel route and takes it 75 yards, and this guy can make plays on the ground and in the passing game. His number of 10-plus yard carries, that percentage was the highest in the nation by Harvey. All-time leading touchdown scorer at UCF. This guy made a lot of plays. I believe 22 rushing touchdowns a season ago. That speaks to the type of production he has. From a passing standpoint, you have to kind of project out a little bit more. But George Paton, Sean Payton said what they saw on tape and then what they saw at his pro day gave them the confidence that he has that skill set, that he's going to be able to contribute in the passing game. Needs to improve as a pass blocker, but George Paton said it. A lot of college running backs need to improve as pass blockers. I thought the interesting part of this was that there's some running backs, Sean said, that you know where they're going to go. You can expect where they're going to be drafted. Harvey was tricky to that, for some reason or another. And so a week ago they saw an article that said, "Hey, he's a riser. He's moving up the board." And they're like, "We don't like that. Let's keep him. Let's keep him in that
let's
end
keep
of the
our
second."
Diamond in the rough.
Exactly. Let's keep him in the second, third. And they were ultimately able to get a guy. And now you add him to a guy like Audric Estime, who's got a lot of power, and you really like that combo. Obviously, we'll see. Do they add another one on day 3? But Broncos country was, we'll say, eager for this team to get a running back, and especially after the trade downs, people were like, are they going to find one?
Right.
They did, and they found a really talented, explosive player in RJ Harvey.
Yeah, they definitely mentioned that. They said they had the best vision in the draft. A lot of praise for him there. And then another offensive weapon they got was the wide receiver at Illinois, Pat Bryant.
Yeah, and this is a guy that, and here's some high praise from Sean Payton, who obviously does not dole that out often, but he said from a traits perspective, so not comparing him and saying that he's going to be this, but from a traits perspective, he said he reminds him of Michael Thomas. Obviously the former second-round pick by the Saints, also wore 13, which is what Bryant wore. And this is a guy that just from a ability to get off the line of scrimmage and then make the contested catches, his toughness, all of those sorts of things stood out to the Broncos as they evaluated him in this draft. And you look at a couple of things: 10 touchdowns, ties an Illinois single season record, 3 touchdowns in either the last 2 minutes of the game or in overtime that were ultimately game-winning touchdowns, and then just a kind of a really high number of plays that either went for a first down or a touchdown. So this is a guy that can make big plays, and then I think you add him to a room that has Cortland Sutton, Marvin Mims, Troy Franklin, Devon Vele. I could go on and on, but this is a solid group already, and we know the Broncos felt confident about where the wide receiver group stood, but they had a chance here to add a player that I think obviously they see really high potential with. Now we see where he goes from there.
Yeah, Pat Bryant also spoke about the opportunity of playing with Bo Nix, calling it very special, saying that he kind of shared a moment with what is seen as Bo Nix's adopted brother, and they mentioned about that special bond, and he said it's very, very important and special to me that I'm able to play with Bo Nix. So having that familiarity, then that full circle moment is also special.
Yeah, I mean, and like you said, this is as much about getting Bo Nix weapons. And when we've talked about a defensive player can be a weapon, right? But these are actual weapons that you can throw to, you can hand the ball off to. And so this makes the Broncos offense better. It'll be exciting to see how these guys kind of come in and contribute.
Well, like you said, towards the end, the Broncos traded back into the end of that third round and got Savon Jones from LSU, a good defensive end, and they were very happy with that pick.
Yeah, and maybe Sean Payton said, hey, we did 2 trade backs, let's do one, let's get back in the round trade up here. But he was a guy that Sean Payton said they thought maybe wouldn't be around when they picked next, so they needed to go up and get him, needed to get that player. We hear them say a lot, you can never have too many corners, right? That's what they said the other day when you get Jahdae Barron. But you also can never have too many guys along the line of scrimmage, whether it's offensive lineman, defensive lineman. We know that group has become a strength with guys like Zach Allen, DJ Jones, John Franklin Myers, and so Malcolm Roach, to name another. And this gives you one kind of a developmental prospect. I think he's a big guy, going to start at defensive end, or start his career at defensive end rather, but has versatility to play along the line of scrimmage. And he doesn't have to be ready right away because you have those guys that I mentioned. But you did see him take a big step his last year. He had more pressures his final year at LSU than he did the 3 previous years combined. And so this is a guy, an ascending player. We know the Broncos like those guys, and he plays extremely hard. So kind of fits everything the Broncos are looking for there, and excited to see him get on the field.
Yeah, well, we have one more day of the draft tomorrow. What are you looking forward to the most?
Well, I'll be interested. 2 picks currently for the Broncos, a 4th rounder, and then one later in the day in the 6th round. Be interested to see, do the Broncos maneuver a little bit more? Do they sit and pick? We've kind of heard them say that the 2nd, 3rd, 4th round is maybe the sweet spot of this draft. And so I would think they would want to use that 4th round pick and make that selection, but we'll see. As today kind of showed us, you really can't predict anything because they moved around a lot. I think the last day, maybe it's more about taking a chance to find a guy, right? Because not every single draft pick every year is going to make your football team, and you got to find kind of those diamonds in the rough, whether it's a Jonathan Cooper or Devon Vele. We know how those guys can contribute. Can you find another guy on day 3 that can come in and make this football team better? Well,
they're very good at finding those diamonds in the rough. So there you have it, Broncos country. Make sure you guys head over to denverbroncos.com for all of your instant analysis, your draft coverage from all weekend.